question is, who is that prophet?
So in John chapter 1, when they asked John the Baptist, "Are you that prophet?" they're referring to the prophet that Moses spoke about and said would come later in Deuteronomy 18. Now I know you think that is Muhammad, which we'll get to in a little bit, but according to the author of the Gospel of John, that is Jesus. In John 4:44, Jesus calls himself a prophet. In John 6:14, the people say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." John 7:40 says, "Surely this man is the prophet." Jesus even says in John 5:46, "If you believe Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me." This is most likely a reference to Deuteronomy 18, and moreover, Acts 3:22 explicitly says Deuteronomy 18 is about Jesus.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Besides Acts 3:22, and also Acts 7:37, there are no other explicit statements attributed to Jesus or his disciples that he was the prophet of Deuteronomy 18. The statements in the Gospel of John, such as John 7:40, are merely the opinions of some people. And if you keep reading, the very next verse says that other people thought he was the Messiah, thus demonstrating a disagreement over Jesus' identity, not to mention that the prophet and the Messiah were clearly considered to be two different people. This disagreement is also demonstrated in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8, 27 through 30. When Jesus asks his disciples what the people are saying about him, they mention the various opinions. He is John the Baptist, he is Elijah, or he is one of the prophets. Then when Jesus asks the disciples who they think he is, Peter answers that he is the Christ, not the prophet whom Moses said would come, or even both. As for John 5:46, this is not an explicit reference to the Deuteronomy 18 prophecy, and is actually rather vague. As Merrill C. Tenney explains in the Expositor's Bible Commentary, Jesus told the people that the law of Moses would condemn them in their rejection of him, because their failure to believe in him was essentially a rejection of Moses, since Moses had prefigured him. Jesus said that a real belief in the revelation of the law through Moses would lead to a belief in himself. Thus, there is no reason to think that John 5:46 was meant to be an explicit reference to Deuteronomy 18. As for Acts 3:22, there are good reasons to reject this emphatic claim, and they tie into the conditions that the prophet, like Moses, had to fulfill. The biggest problem is the reason for sending the prophet in the first place. Deuteronomy 18:16 through 17 states that the Israelites wanted a prophet to be sent because they did not want to hear the voice of God again. This is precisely why God said he would send a prophet who would speak on behalf of him. This disqualifies Jesus as that prophet because, according to the Synoptic Gospels, the voice of God was heard by the Israelites during Jesus' baptism. Why send a prophet to fulfill a condition set by the people and then fail to fulfill that condition? The other problem is that, contrary to Christian claims that Jesus fulfilled all the other conditions set down in Deuteronomy 18 and 34 for the prophet like Moses, he actually did not fulfill them all.
So Deuteronomy actually tells us how a prophet like Moses would be unique, and it's not those qualities you listed. It says the prophet will speak the words that God puts in his mouth, he will speak with God face to face, and perform miracles, signs, and wonders. If we go back to the Gospel of John, we can see that Jesus fulfills all these requirements.
So yes, while Jesus did fulfill the condition of speaking on behalf of God, and he certainly did perform miracles, he did not fulfill the condition of knowing the Lord face to face. Remember, this is a condition that the prophet must fulfill. If you are a Trinitarian Christian who believes in the incarnation, you have to accept that Jesus did not become a prophet until he incarnated as a human and took on a human nature. Therefore, his cosmic acquaintance with the Father is irrelevant. He had to speak to the Father face to face while on earth in order to qualify as a prophet like Moses. Since he did not fulfill that condition, he cannot be the prophet.
وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا